Good afternoon, Vande Mataram, Jai Hind. Welcome to my channel Chintamani 9617. From today onwards, we are starting Indian polity, starting with making of the constitution. So, without wasting time, let's just start. First, the making of the constitution. A constitution may be defined as the fundamental and entrenched set of rules governing the conduct of a nation state and establishing its concepts, character and structure. Means a constitution is a fundamental part of the country or a nation which helps to govern the concept, the character and structure of the nation. Then it comes to the constitutionalism. It is a political philosophy based on the idea that government authority is derived from the people and should be limited by a constitution that clearly expresses what the government can and can't do. Means it states that what the government should do and what the government should avoid to do. It is the idea that the state is not free to do anything it wants, but it is bound by the laws limited its authority. Means the state or the nation, it is not free to do anything it wants. Suppose anyone have any idea, but it is not beneficial for the people living in the country, then it should not be done. Constitution makes that limitations on the state and the nation. Then it comes the significance of the constitution. What are the significance? What is derived from the constitution? The philosophy embodied in a nation's constitution determines the kind of government present there. The constitution enables the government, what is the government should do and government present doing. It signifies that. In the present times, it is not possible to establish a good administration without the constitution. The constitution gives all the ideas for the government and the people living in the country as well. Without the good constitution, no good administration will be possible. The constitution ensures certain rights to its citizens as well as define their duties. In the constitution, we know that the fundamental rights are there and the fundamental duties as well are there. So the constitution ensures the rights for the citizen, the people living in the country, gives them some rights as well as some duty to perform. A constitution is an expression of faith and hope that people have from the state and the promises that they wish to make for the future. The constitution gives the faith and hope to the people, the citizens of the country. Also the promises that the people want in the country that make sure by the constitution. Then it comes to the Constituent Assembly. What is the Constituent Assembly? Means the people assemble there to make the constitution for the India. It has been already done, the constitution is already made, but we need to correct, or we know that the constitution amendment bills are there to add new act in the Constituent Assembly or remove the old ones. For that we have the Constituent Assembly. And in the Constituent Assembly, we know that generally the task of framing the constitution of a sovereign democratic nation is performed by the representative body of its people. Some body of people means some members are there in the democratic nation who perform the Constituent Assembly. Such a body is elected by the people for the purpose of considering and adopting a constitution. It is called Constituent Assembly. In this Constituent Assembly, the members, the people are there which we choose. We elect them for the purpose of considering and adopting the constitution. Then we come to timeline. What the timeline for making of the Constitution of India has been done. The process has been followed step by step for it. Starting from May 1927. In May 1927, in Bombay Special Session of Congress, Motilal Nehru moved a resolution calling upon the Congress Working Committee to frame a constitution for India. In May 1927, Mr. Motilal Nehru moved a resolution. Means he speak in this session about the Constitution of India for the India itself, and he moved the resolution in that session. In December 1927, resolution on Swaraj Constitution was reiterated by Jawaharlal Nehru in resolution passed by Madras session of Congress in December. Then it comes to May 1928. In May 1928, an all parties conference organized at Bombay appointed a committee under the chairmanship of Motilal Nehru to determine the principle of the Constitution of Assembly. In this session, basically, the principles required for the Constitution of Assembly is discussed in this session. Then, in 10th August 1928, Nehru report was submitted, which was the first attempt by Indians to frame a full-fledged constitution for the country. In this session, Nehru report was submitted. The Nehru has given a task to perform the Constitution Assembly for the first time. He submitted that report, and it was the first attempt by Indians to frame a full-fledged constitution for their own country. The idea of Constituent Assembly in India was propagated in 1934 by Mr. M.N. Roy, the pioneer of the communist movement in India. Because of the M.N. Roy, the making of the constitution, we can say it started. In the year 1935, the Indian National Congress demanded a Constituent Assembly to frame the Constitution of India. The Constituent Assembly demands the making, the actual writing and step-by-step forming of the Constituent Assembly is done by the National Congress. Then it comes to the 1938. Jawaharlal Nehru said that the Constitution of India will be made by the independent Constituent Assembly without any external interference. Means Jawaharlal Nehru said that we will make our own constitution without any external interference. At that time, it was directly mean by we will make our own constitution without your help. The Britishers will make by the Indians. In 1940, the demand for Constituent Assembly was accepted by the British government, which came to be known as the August Offer. The demand for the Constituent Assembly, we have demanded the Constituent Assembly for the Constituent Assembly, which were later accepted by the British government, and it is known as the August Offer. We know that the August Offer is done in the chairmanship. We know that the viceroy was there. So the August in 1940, the viceroy was Lord Linlington. Then it comes to 1942. The Cripps India Mission came to India under the Sir Stafford Cripps, and making of the new constitution was now rest solely in the Indians' hand. Means all the terms were accepted in 1940, but actually in 1942 Indians have given the full-fledged to construct their own constitution by the Indians. In 1946, the Indian cabinet mission came to under Cripps, Patrick Lawrence and A.V. Alexander, and the Constituent Assembly of India was set up. Then the Constituent Assembly of India consists as per cabinet mission plan of 389 members. Means 389 members were present in the Constituent Assembly. In that, 292 members were elected from the governor provinces, 4 from the chief commissioner areas of Delhi, Ajmer, Mewar, Kaur and British Balochistan, and 93 members were nominated from the princely states. The members of the Constituent Assembly were elected on the basis of the population and were in the ratio of roughly 1:1 million, that is 10 lakh. The population at that time was 389 million. So 389 members were elected for the Constituent Assembly. Then the election to the Constituent Assembly were completed by July-August 1946. We conducted some sort of election at that time in 1946 that was done. In the election for the 296 seats of the Constituent Assembly, Congress won 208, Muslim League won 73, and 15 were won by other parties like Forward Bloc, Communist Party, Swaraj Party, etc. and many parties which present there. After the creation of the new Constituent Assembly for Pakistan, 90 members resigned from the Constituent Assembly of India, which reduces the size of the Constituent Assembly from 389 to 299 members. The Constituent Assembly was convened on the October 1st, 1947 after the partition. जब हमारा भारत पाकिस्तान का पार्टीशन हुआ तब Constituent Assembly was convened on the October 1st, 1947. Then the first meeting of the Constituent Assembly took place on 9th December 1946 under the leadership of Dr. Sachinanda Sinha. However, he was the only temporary president. At that time, the first Constituent Assembly first meeting was done under the chairmanship, or we can say the leadership of the Dr. Sachinanda Sinha. But he was the temporary president. Later on, he was replaced by Dr. Rajendra Prasad and H.C. Mukherjee and V.T. Krishnamachari as the permanent member and the vice presidents of the Constituent Assembly on 11th December 1946. These two questions mainly asked in the exam, so make sure to write it down and note it down. Objectives of the resolution. On December 13, 1946, Jawaharlal Nehru moved the historic objectives resolution in the Assembly. By the Assembly on January 22, 1947, it laid down the fundamentals and philosophy of the constitutional structure. Its modified version forms the preambles of the present constitution. Then the Assembly met again on 24 January 1950 when the members attached their signatures to the Constituent Assembly. There were 11 sessions which were conducted. First was on 9 to 23 December 1946, second 20 to 25 January 1947, third 28 April to 2 May 1947, 14 to 31 July 1947, 5th 14 to 30 August 1947, 6th 27 January 1948, then 7th 4 November 1948 to 8 January 1949. It was the longest session. Then 16 May 1949, 30 July to 18 September 1949, 6 to 17 October 1949, and 11th was 14 to 26 November 1949. Then the first meeting was boycotted by the Muslim League. The meeting was attended by 211 members. The Muslim League boycotted the first meeting as they have done the partition, so they boycotted it. Mr. B.N. Rao was appointed as the legal advisor of the Constituent Assembly. He was the legal advisor. What is the legally had should be done, so he was there for that. The first draft was prepared in October 1947 by the advisory branch of the office of the Constituent Assembly under Sir B. N. Rao. Second draft 21st February 1948. Third draft 26 October 1948. The readings were done for making the correction in the constitution which were going on. The three readings were there: 4 November to 9 November 1948, then 15 November 1948 to 17 October 1949, then third reading 14 November to 26 November 1949. After the enormous number of changes, the Constituent Assembly of India finally accepted the Constitution on 26 November 1949. But remember that we accepted the complete constitution of India, accepted but not the enforced. It was enforced on 24 January. Last session was done on 24 January 1950, where Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the President of India, and also the national song and national anthem was accepted and enforced on 24 January 1950. Out of the total members of the Assembly, 284 members signed the official copies of the Constitution on 24 January 1950, and some previous provisions of the Constitution pertaining to citizenship, election, provisional parliament, temporary and transitional provisions, and short title contained in Article 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 60, 324, 366, 367, 379, 380, 388, 391, 392, 393 came into force on November 26, 1949 itself. Constitution Day is celebrated every year on 26 November. The remaining provisions of the Constitution came into force on January 26, 1950. It was on this day, is referred to in the Constitution as the day of its commencement, and it's celebrated as the Republic Day. The final draft of the Constitution was adopted on 26 November 1949 and contained 8 schedules, 22 parts and 395 articles. We know that the Constitution was accepted in November, but it was enforced to the Indians on 26 January. What was the reason for it? So we know that the January 26 is specially chosen as the date of commencement, means enforcement of the Constitution, because of its historical importance. It was on this day in 1930 that Purana Swaraj Day was celebrated, following the resolution of the Lahore session of the INC. So note it down that on November 26, 1949, we accepted the Constitution given by the Constituent Assembly, but enforced on the Indians on 26 January 1950. The Constituent Assembly took 2 years, 11 months and 18 days to make the Constitution, and the cost of making the Constitution was approximately 64 lakhs. There were 2 committees in the Constituent Assembly, the major committees and the minor committees. The chairmen of the important major committees were Rules of Procedure Committee, Rajendra Prasad; Steering Committee, again the Rajendra Prasad; Drafting Committee, B.R. Ambedkar; Flag Committee, J.B. Kripalani; Union Constitution Committee, Jawaharlal Nehru; State Committee, that is Committee for Negotiating with States; and the Provisional Constitution, Jawaharlal Nehru. Provisional Constitution Committee was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Fundamental Rights Minorities, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. Then it comes to Northeast Frontier Tribal Areas and Assam Excluded and Partially Excluded Areas Subcommittees. That was under Gopinath Bardolai. Excluded and Partially Excluded Areas Subcommittee were under A.V. Thakkar. Then the Fundamental Rights Subcommittee was J.B. Kripalani. Minority Subcommittee was under H.C. Mukherjee, and the Northwest Frontier was there as well. The minor committees were there. The first one was Finance and the Staff Committee, which was under Rajendra Prasad. Credential Committee A.K. Iyer, House Committee B.P. Sitaramaiah, Order of Business Committee K.M. Munshi, Ad hoc Committee on the National Flag Rajendra Prasad, and the Committee on the Functions of the Constituent Assembly was under G.V. Balvankar. Then it was set up on the 29th August 1947. What the drafting committee, the Constitution of India. It was set up on 29th August 1947. The aim, what was the aim for this committee? To prepare the draft of the new constitution. The drafting committee took less than 6 months to prepare the draft. In all, it sat for the total 141 days. Then the persons who were in the constitution drafting committee was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. We know him as the father of the constitution. Then N. Gopalaswamy, A.K. Iyer, S.M. Sadullah, K.M. Munshi, M.N. Rao, replaced by B.L. Mittal, T.T. Krishnaramachari, replaced D.P. Khaitan. The sources of the Indian constitution. We didn't write everything on our own. We studied the all other countries' constitution, borrowed from some part from them, and researched on it and developed our constitution from that. So the Indian constitution is a very unique document which had derived its concept from various sources. The major structural part of the constitution, like the executive function, emergency provisions, has been derived from the Government of India Act 1935. We will learn about that. The philosophical part of the constitution, like fundamental rights, DPSP, are borrowed from the American and Irish respectively. The political part of the constitution, like the principle of cabinet government and the relation between executive and legislature, is borrowed from the British constitution. So let's see what we borrowed from other countries. From UK, we borrowed nominal head, the president, like Queen, post of the prime minister, parliament type of government, the bicameral parliament, that means the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha. Lower house is more powerful, that means the Lok Sabha we have in the India, that is more powerful than the Rajya Sabha. Single citizenship, that in America they have the dual citizenship, that means a country's citizenship as well as the state citizenship, but in India we have only one citizenship, that is Indian citizenship. Speaker in Lok Sabha, that is elected by the people. The cabinet system of minister, these are borrowed from the UK. From the Ireland we have borrowed the concept of the directive principle of the state policy, and Ireland borrowed it from the Spain. Method of election of the president, the nomination of members in the Rajya Sabha by the president. These three are borrowed from the Ireland. Then we have borrowed some part from the USA constitution, that is written constitution. Vice president act as ex officio chairman of Rajya Sabha. The fundamental rights, the Supreme Court, the provisions of states, independence of judiciary and judicial review, preamble, the removal of the Supreme Court and High Court judges. These parts are borrowed from the USA Constitution. Then from South African, procedure for amendment of the Constitution and election of the members of the Rajya Sabha. Then from the USSR, that is Russia, borrowed fundamental duties, 5-year plans. From Australia, we borrowed concurrent lease, language of the preamble, provision regarding trade, commerce and intercourse. From Japan, we have borrowed law on which the Supreme Court functions. The Supreme Court function, we have borrowed it from the Japanese constitution. From Germany, we have borrowed suspension of fundamental rights during the emergency, presidential emergency, national emergency, financial emergency. The suspension of the fundamental rights, that is borrowed from the Germany. From Canada, we borrowed the scheme of federation with a strong center. distribution of powers between the center and the state, and placing judiciary powers with the center. From Australian Constitution we borrowed concurrently freedom of trade, commerce and intercourse, the joint sitting of the two houses of parliament. French Constitution, republic. From the French Constitution we borrowed republic and the ideals of liberty, equality and fraternity in the preamble. Before moving forward, I will give you just some small tricks to remember the constitution taken from the countries. We know that the USA is powerful country. So power comes from the fundamental rights, the Supreme Court, and the impeachment process. So from the power we have the power comes from the rights, Supreme Court and the impeachment process of the president. So you can remember that as the fundamental right, Supreme Court and the impeachment process from the USA. We borrowed the emergency, the suspension of the fundamental right during the emergency. So you can remember it as a जम गई मनी पैसा जो होता है वो कब रुक जाता है आपातकालीन स्थिति में. सो जम गई मनी, जर्मनी से जम, मनी से मनी, इमरजेंसी में सब रुक गया था, इसलिए फंडामेंटल राइट्स, सस्पेंशन ऑफ फंडामेंटल राइट्स ड्यूरिंग इमरजेंसी. देन DPSP, आय का समान वितरण करना. आय मतलब जो धन होता है हमारा, पैसे होते हैं, वो हमने लिया था आयरलैंड से. सो वो होगा हमारा आय का समान वितरण करना, धन का समान वितरण. सो DPSP फ्रॉम आयरलैंड. सो फ्रॉम रशिया, we know that for remembering we have taken some parts from the other constitution but not from the US रशिया. सो जो रूस था वो रूस रुट कर बैठ गया. सो उसको मनाने के लिए हमने एक छोटा सा पार्ट दिया कि तुम में से हम मौलिक कर्तव्य यानी कि फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज ले लेंगे. वो रूस रुट कर बैठ गया था, इसलिए हमने उससे फंडामेंटल ड्यूटीज ले ली, इसलिए रूस से मौलिक कर्तव्य ड्यूटीज. इस तरह आप कोरिलेशन बना के याद कर सकते हैं. देन कम्स सम इम्पोर्टेंट पॉइंट्स. द नेशनल फ्लैग वॉज एक्सेप्टेड ऑन 22 जुलाई 1947. देन द नेशनल सॉन्ग वॉज एक्सेप्टेड on 24 January 1950. Then it comes to the national anthem, which was accepted similarly on 24 January 1950. Then the Bengali Venkaya from Andhra Pradesh designed the national flag, which we have. Prem Bihari Narayana Raizada was the English calligrapher of the constitution. He converted our constitution of the India from one language to the English. So Prem Bihari Narayan Raizada was the English calligrapher. Vasant Krishna Vidya was the Hindi calligrapher of the constitution. Both the versions of the constitution, Hindi and English, were handwritten. We know that our constitution, all the constitution, the articles, everything was handwritten. And for the Constituent Assembly, the symbol for that was the elephant. Please note this down, the elephant. The Vasant Krishna Vidya, Hindi calligrapher, the Prem Bihari Narayan Raizada, English calligrapher, and the 3 dates. You have to remember this, it will come in exam definitely. Then some other facts. The preamble was adopted on 22nd January 1947, and it's based on the objective resolution moved by the Jawaharlal Nehru in the Constituent Assembly on December 1946. The preamble, it means the index. Generally, it means the index. The index we see before any book, the chapter, how many chapters are there, the page number, that is known as the preamble. But in Indian Constitution, it is different part. The 284 members of the Constituent Assembly signed the final approved Constitution. There were 15 women members in the Constituent Assembly. The Constitution of India is the longest and the most voluminous constitution in the world. The final draft of the Constitution was adopted on 26th November 1949 but was enacted 2 months later on 26 January 1950 because on this day in 1930 INC demanded Purna Swaraj at the Lahore session on 26 January 1930. We have discussed about that. The original copies of the Indian Constitution weren't typed or printed. They have been handwritten and are now kept in a helium-filled case within the library of the Parliament. It is placed in the library of the Parliament, kept in the helium-filled case to preserve it, and it is handwritten. The preamble of the Indian Constitution was inspired by the preamble and the structure of the United States of America. So that was all about the making of the Constitution. I have given you some facts which will come in the exam, and you have to remember this. If you have any doubt, you can just type in the comment section. I will make sure to answer each and every part. And don't forget to like, subscribe and share to this channel. Thank you. We will meet on the next day for the next topic.